Hey folks, welcome back to the show. We have a fantastic episode for you today. Whether you are a fitness enthusiast or someone who isn't a fitness enthusiast but thinks they should be a fitness enthusiast, we have something for everybody in this episode. So welcome back. As always, before I jump in, I want to thank you guys. I'd love to invite you to check out the website, natnidham.com. And that is where you can sign up for my newsletter, which we just revamped. So it's a brand new format. And also you can learn about my membership community if you're interested in hanging out with me and some of the podcast guests that we have who come in as experts to do live Q&As with the community. So I would love to thank you, all of you who've taken the time to write a review for the episode. If you're feeling inspired by today's episode, please do leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to the podcast on, because that is how we get seen by more people and get to help more people with all the information we share on the podcast. Our guest today is Ulrich Dempfle, once a mechanical engineer for Europe's fancy cars, then an AI pioneer in London hospitals, and now the brains behind Carol Bike. He took Rehit, which is reduced exertion HIIT, high intensity training, from fancy labs to your living room 40 prototypes later. We'll dissect the whole Zone 2 craze, why you'd need 4 to 8 hours a week to see any real gains from it, and why that's just bananas for normal humans, and frankly, even for people who are truly interested in longevity. And then Ulrich's sharing why VO2 max matters more than your weight, why Rehit's 220-second all-out bursts in a 10-minute ride are the real deal, and how it torched his blood pressure and dropped 10 kilos off his frame. I can tell you that I use my Carol Bike, at least 3 times a week, because even on the days when I'm doing heavy lifting routines, I know that I didn't necessarily get that VO2 max training that I needed. And I just hop on my Carol, 10 minutes, and I'm done. I love it. And then on the times when I need a longer ride for whatever reason, Carol's there for me too. So you can do the whole range with Carol. And we talk about that on the episode. Now, they're offering a pretty cool deal if you did want to give a Carol Bike a try. You get a 100-day free trial. So all you've got to do to get that is, and just so you know, this link's going to be in the show notes, but if you're sitting there with a pen and paper, you can go to carolbike.pxf.io/nat or use code NAT for a free 100-day trial. Once again, that's carolbike.pxf.io/nat or just use code NAT for a free 100-day trial. Hey folks, just a quick reminder that all of the information presented in this podcast is for information purposes only. No medical advice, no diagnosing, no treatments suggested here. Before you try anything that you hear about or learn about here, make sure that you check with your medical provider. Ulrich Dempfle, such a pleasure to finally get you back on the show. This is exciting.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yes, well, we always have a good time. I think it's been like 18 months since you were here last. And in that episode, which we'll refer to that in the show notes, you guys, but in that episode, we kind of really talk about the backstory, how Carol came to be and the whole 9 yards. And so we're going to not do that today because there's a few other big topics around fitness and longevity that I think we really both want to lean into for the audience. So if you want the background, the backstory, you got to go back to the old episode. But if you want the current story, I'm not even going to call it a new story because I think the interesting thing about fitness is there's not that much that's new. It's all leveraging old tricks. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a bit of a cyclicality and what becomes fashionable. And I think just our current time makes it also necessary that people won't talk about or don't want to talk about the same stuff over and over again. And so, yes, sometimes things get reheated and taken out again.
Yeah, what's old is new again. And so I think where I'd love to start the conversation, because the big thrust in social media right now, there's a few big names that have really gotten behind this. and this is something I learned about when I was in school way back, is zone 2 training. Really holding it up as the ultimate workout, the ultimate way for people to get to and achieve and maintain a level of fitness in the name of longevity and health span, which is ultimately what we're all after. But at the end of the day, we also want to feel good today, right? So we're ultimately wired for immediate gratification. But Ulrich, can you just educate us a little bit about what is zone 2 training and why do you think it's gotten such crazy press?
Yeah, sure. So zone 2 training is a type of cardio workout, but it's at a lower intensity, an intensity where you'd still be able to hold a conversation, speak in full sentences, even though uncomfortably.
Right.
And the intention in zone 2 training is that you train at a point where your muscles use mainly fat to fuel the movement, to fuel their work, rather than sugar and glycogen. And so because zone 2 is fairly low intensity, zone 2 workouts have to be a lot longer than higher intensity alternatives to create a meaningful training stimulus. And so leading proponents recommend sessions of 60 to 90 minutes. So really long workouts. And the target is ultimately increased mitochondrial density and increased mitochondrial efficiency. So mitochondria, the powerhouses of your cell, and you want to have more of them, larger mitochondria, and you want them to work more efficiently. And that would then increase the point at which you can exercise and still use mainly fat for fuel. It increases your capacity to clear lactate. So this is important for athletes who want to race harder for longer. And with more and better working mitochondria, also your VO2 max should improve over time.
Right. And so let's define VO2 max for people. We're going to bump in the definitions just in case we have portions of the audience who are relatively new to this space. So let's define what VO2 max is to people, and then we're going to go back to that zone 2 thing.
Yeah, sure. So VO2 max is your ability to burn oxygen during exercise. And it's your basically maximum capacity to burn oxygen during exercise. So it's a physiological measurement. You can estimate it with some tests. You can measure it with a breathing apparatus, with a breathing mask. And yeah, it's not just one physiological marker. I would argue it's the most important health marker. So VO2 max is the strongest predictor for life expectancy.
Wow.
And not just by, it's really the strongest predictor by some margin. And so improving your VO2 max, if you care about longevity and your health and fitness, is really a most important goal that we should, ideally all strive towards.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think that the bulk of the population just doesn't even go there, right? It's not on their radar, and it's so central to how we feel and how we're able to perform. And ironically, as you work on your VO2 max, so many other things fall into place, right? I think go ahead.
Absolutely. And so one, I would say, shocking fact, and this is something that's very well researched in studies that had tens of thousands of participants that were followed over decades, is that low VO2 max, so low cardiorespiratory fitness, leads to more avoidable deaths than diabetes, obesity, and smoking combined.
Wow.
So it's that important. So you have these really big issues: obesity, diabetes, smoking, but low cardiorespiratory fitness, a low VO2 max, lead to more avoidable deaths than those three combined. So when you think what motivates you to exercise, many people, of course, will be motivated by, oh, I want to lose some weight, and it helps, even though nutrition is of course the number one. But really, what you're getting is so much more valuable
Yeah.
in terms of longevity and health and fitness and vitality, that we believe that should really be the primary goal.
Yeah. Well, and you'll feel it. Right? Like, I mean,
Absolutely.
if you're one of those people, if you're listening to this, you're just new into this space, and you're one of those people that gets winded going up the stairs, or God forbid, you're having to carry groceries. Imagine, just close your eyes for a minute and imagine going up those stairs and not feeling winded and not, and welcoming a couple of grocery bags because you're like, okay, I'm going to push myself today. Like, I think that if we think about quality of life, that is, the human person, the human animal, if you will, we're not really good at projecting into the future. Even though we understand, it's one of the things that distinguishes us from the animal kingdom, is our ability to understand what the consequences are in the future of our behavior today. At the end of the day, we're all 3 years old. We all just want to do things that make us feel good today. And maybe we believe that the future will take care of itself, or somehow we got a pass and it's not going to apply to us. But the truth of the matter is that nobody gets a free pass. And if our goal is to remain vital and healthy and do the things that you want to do for a really long time, these are the things we want to lean into right now. And they will help us to feel and perform better at this minute. So we've made the big pitch for VO2 Max. The promise of Zone 2 training is that it is the best way to improve your VO2 Max over time, and time being a major component here, because 60 to 90 minutes. And so for these guys that are promoting this, how many times a week do you have to do your 60 to 90 minute
Yeah.
steady state exercise?
I mean, here it becomes really incredible. The recommendation of those leading proponents is 3 to 5 times a week, 60 to 90 minutes. So that's a phenomenal amount of time. So you're something like 4 to 8 hours, either running or on a bike or so. And this is one of the first and very obvious issues with Zone 2. How many people will really have time for that? And is it therefore a sensible suggestion? And should it be the top priority of the the cardio exercise we do? So there's again some really quite shocking facts. So government guidelines are for 150 minutes of 2.5 hours of cardio exercise a week. And if you look at how many people actually achieve that, it's less than 5%. So over 95% of Americans do not get that amount of cardio exercise in each week. And if you survey people why not, the number one reason is lack of time. And you can believe that or not, and think whether people are maybe lazy or so, but we believe it. If people say they don't have time, they probably really don't have time. Or, there's so many things that are competing for their time, so many distractions, so many, there's so many reels, so many stories to go through, so many podcasts to listen to, that
well, actually, you could listen to the podcast while you're doing your Zone 2. However, there's other things you need to be doing, even from a fitness perspective.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, maybe talk about that, because I think if you've committed that chunk of time, and I want to talk a little bit also about the physical reasons why it may not be the best for everybody, but from a practical perspective, people who have young children, people who commute to work, people who just have really busy lives and can't carve that time, even if they manage to carve that time out of the day, out of, let's say, 5 days a week, you still need to lift weights.
Yeah.
You still need to do other forms of, if you're really gunning for being in great shape today, feeling good, and doing it long into the future, you need to be working on mobility. You need to be working on your strength training. We're stacking here. That 8 hours has now become your baseline.
Yeah. And don't forget, you need to have 8 hours sleep each
Oh,
night
that
and
too.
have healthy social connections. And so, yes, there's a lot. And then you have to get your job done and your family looked after. So, yes, we think time is actually for most people a very precious resource.
Correct. So now but that people listening could be like, yeah, okay, well, whatever, man up, pull up your boots. You should be doing this. I think realistically for a lot of people, this puts them in a situation where the bar is so high that they just kind of go, you know what, I can't do that. I'm out. Right. And so I may as well just have another glass of Chardonnay, which I happen to hate, but may as well have another glass of wine and and whatever. And it'll be fine. I'll deal with it later. But are there also any kind of downsides physiologically to doing this kind of long duration, steady state workout?
So there are a few further issues other than it not being terribly practical. So one is zone 2 is actually a relatively poorly defined term. It's not a scientific term. It's more like it's a popular term. And there's many different definitions out there what zone 2 training actually is. And one thing is really clear. If you trained at too low intensity, so if you picked up something and said like, 60% of my maximum heart rate, and you calculate
Right.
that 220 minus age, and then you train at that level, there's a very real risk that you'll just be wasting your time, that you spend all that time and you get no benefit for it.
Right. And is that because that 60%, first of all, the formula of 220 minus your age, it's kind of like the best we have. It's not great. It's not particularly precise. And it's going to vary from person to person, right? Depending on your baseline fitness level.
Yes. And so for example, if you have a fitness tracker or so that tells you, this is your zone 2, it can be quite misleading because there are so many different definitions out there. And it's not a very reliable way to judge that. So there's many ways of trying to assess whether you are really in zone 2. It's you can look at your heart rate, or if you have something that like a bike that shows your power output, or if you're in a lab, you could.
I was going to say in a lab with a face mask on, you probably that's the way to do it, right?
But even that is highly dependent on the state you're currently in, whether you've had a sugary drink or a high carb meal before, how well you've slept before. So we've obviously, because we develop a high end exercise bike that's also very, very good for zone 2 training. We've obviously looked at all of that and tested that, but there's quite a bit of variability, even if you use a breathing mask, because the state in which you do the exercises influences those metrics quite a lot. And another kind of the gold standard would be with like little blood tests every minute. But that's completely undoable. What's actually like a really interesting emerging way to determine the right level of intensity for zone 2 is using HRV, using real-time analysis, not just of the HRV, but the complexity of your heart rate variability. So, and that is something fairly precise, and that you can do. It's like very non-invasive. All you need is a chest belt, so we're launching that now on our bike within the next like 6 to 8 weeks.
Interesting.
So if you want to do zone 2, that at least you get it right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's quite important. Because if you do it at, too casual, too low intensity, you won't see much in terms of results. And that's obviously, that would be tragic.
Well, and you'd wasted all that time that you set aside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the other thing, I think if you decided, and people should be quite aware of that, if you decided, yes, zone two, that's it for me, and I'll rely only on that. Again, even if you did it at the right intensity, there's solid data that shows if you did zone two training for 150 minutes a week, some 40% of people would not see an improvement in VO2 max.
Wow.
There would be, I think, in terms of mitochondrial health and mitochondrial efficiency, other benefits. So I don't think it's a complete waste of time. But given how important VO2 max is, you do really want to see an improvement in your VO2 max from the time you spend on cardio. And so if you only relied on zone two, there's just a really high rate of people who won't see an increase in their VO2 max.
And do you think that's because, the body adapts to pretty much anything that you throw at it repeatedly over time, right? And so the body naturally it's part of our survival mechanism, honestly, is we become more efficient at what the body sees as, okay, what are the shortcuts I can take? How can I use less energy doing the same? If I'm going to do the same thing over and over again, surely there's ways for me to save energy, and it's going to figure out ways to do that. And I would think that with zone two, what might also happen with a lot of people is it would get easier and you wouldn't necessarily ramp up your intensity accordingly
Yeah, yeah, unless you have the right technology with you,
to
or
push you along.
yes, exactly, exactly. And so I think if you there's but either you have really good technology that tells you, for example, based on heart rate variability,
Hmm.
what the right intensity is, or you're really good at listening to your body. That's
Yep.
the other thing. I think rather than relying on heart rate or so alone, it's then better to listen to your body, to feel your body, and then go to that point where you can still speak, but it's uncomfortable. You can
You want
still
to ride
speak,
the
not
edge.
sing,
Yeah.
and be kind of right at that edge.
Yeah. You got to be good at riding the edge, which is not comfortable. Right. And so many of us are not comfortable with discomfort. So I think that to finish off, are there any real downsides to zone two training that you know of? Or is it just basically, for the most part, it's mostly impractical? And to me, one of the big downsides is in many cases, it may not leave you with enough time to get the other components
Yeah,
of fitness in that you
yeah.
really need to be well rounded. But is there anything else that the
No,
audience should know?
you said that very well. So zone two, and I would go so far and say almost any exercise is good. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
for
if
sure.
zone two works for you and you can do it while you're listening to a great podcast, wonderful. Or you watch your favorite shows or so, then zone two is good. It's more a case, do you get the highest return on your investment? Are
Hmm.
you potentially wasting your time?
Hmm.
Or are you doing it at the expense of something that's potentially a lot more important? And that's kind of our main issue with the current hype around Zone Two,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
it's very much positioned as, oh, it's fundamental.
the
It should
thing.
be your basis. There's a recommendation that 80% of your cardio should be Zone Two, which has no scientific basis whatsoever. This is
Hmm.
something that trickled down from elite sports, like Tour de France cycling or so. But those are guys who work out 25, 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
And for them, it's the only practical approach because you can't work at high intensity for that long. You can do maybe 6, 7 hours per week, really high intensity. And the rest must be low intensity because
Hmm.
otherwise you're overtraining. So some of this, what gets put out there in very bold statements, is just not scientifically sound, and doesn't have a solid scientific basis, and it's just it doesn't translate one to one from elite sports to all of us,
To
to
all
the
of us.
broad masses.
What about the idea that long duration steady state exercise is fundamentally catabolic? Like, like keeping up muscle mass in as we age, we're fighting against nature here. Your VO2 max naturally declines as you age. Your muscle mass naturally declines as you age. Like all these really foundational things that we take for granted in youth start to decline with age. In order to maintain, right, or to overcome, if you will, that natural decline, we have to work at it, right? So you have to
Yeah.
work at your VO2 max. You have to work at maintaining lean muscle. That zone 2 training is not like, if you look at the Tour de France guys as an example, and it's an extreme scenario, let's be clear. Most of us will never. I don't want to, and we'll never be there. But if you look at these guys, I remember reading this guy, something Hamilton, he trained with Lance Armstrong.
Yeah.
And he talked about, by the end of Tour de France, you knew that you had worked really hard and been successful if your jersey was flapping, because they would have lost so much muscle mass
Yeah.
from that. I mean, that ridiculous thing. But zone 2 training by its very nature is not really going to help you to build muscle. Is there science around that?
I don't know what study I could quote on that, but I think that's entirely right. I would agree with your statement there. And I would also agree it is harder or easier for different people at different stages of their life to build and maintain muscle mass. When I really love to go to the gym with my 16-year-old, but it's just so much easier for him to increase his weight and kind of grow and get big and strong and all bulky than it is for me. So I have to, at 47, I have to work a whole lot harder to improve.
Right.
And that is true, like for men and women at a certain age. I think perimenopausal women, menopausal women, yes, it just becomes harder to build and maintain muscle mass, and long steady state endurance can be catabolic. It can lead to release of stress hormones like cortisols, and so be counterproductive. That's one. But then even if you do the zone 2 training right, if it stops you from doing the high intensity work that really pushes the needle on VO2 max, or the resistance and strength training that helps you like maintain or build muscle mass, then it's definitely counterproductive. And so here you really have to ask yourself, like, how do you stack your program, and what is your what's the priority in which you attack those different things?
Yeah. So it may have sounded until now that we've thrown zone 2 under the bus, and we're not throwing it under the bus. Like, at the end of the day, if you have all the time in the world and you have time to get those 60 to 90-minute rides in, or swims, or whatever it is, and you can also find time to do your mobility and do your strength training, and you've got that discipline and that drive, then that's amazing. But I think that what we're talking about here is, for most people, it's such a big time investment that, can we be more efficient with our time? And so this is where, I know that when I first heard about Carol Bike back in the day, I mean, I ran out and bought one. It was at the beginning of COVID. And I was like, I said to my husband, we need one of these things. And he's like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, no, I'm not kidding. I'm telling you, we need one. Yeah. And he's like, I think she's lost her mind. I'm like, no, we need a bike. You don't even like biking. I'm like, I know I don't like biking, but I know I can do this. But Carol has brought a whole new aspect into this dialogue, and it's about VO2 max. The biggest problem Carol has is that it sounds too good to be true, and which is why you did such a great job. You've done such a great job doing getting the research done to establish what really can happen. And what I'd love to talk about, first thing I want to say to people is, number one, you can do zone 2 training on your Carol bike if you happen to own one. So we're not saying zone 2 is no good, but what we are saying is that for most people, it's either not going to be enough or it's not easy to maintain. So let's move into what can still improve your VO2 max and other really key metrics in health. We'll start with deconditioned people, and then we can move into people who, like my husband, who's got ridiculous VO2 max as an ex-water polo player. Like, it's going cycling with him is just depressing. So I don't. We're going up a hill. I'm like, could we just get like a tow rope? But let's talk a little, then we'll talk a little bit about people that are already pretty fit, but they're looking to ramp it up.
Yeah,
and I think Carol brings aspects, or a bike like Carol brings things to the table that does leverage something new that would not have been available to us back in the old days.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Carol has been, this was the whole purpose of developing Carol, was to take a Rehit, so reduced exertion, high intensity interval training, from the academic labs to the wide, broad audience and make it available to many people. Rehit is incredibly short. So Rehit workout can be done in as little as 5 minutes. And you only have to work hard for 2 20-second sprints. So that argument that so many of us have, like, oh, I don't have time, that is really taken care of. And because you with Carol, you have a very short, very effective, and definitely the most efficient way to improve your VO2 max with workouts that are 5 to 8 minutes long, and you have to do them 2 to 3 times a week to get a most potent training stimulus to improve your VO2 max, to improve your metabolic health.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So I do the 8-minute on my bike. I've never brought myself to do the 5. I think I'm going to have to do it one of these days, but
no, that's entirely fine. So the 5 minutes is if you're, and we do have those customers who really want the shortest. But what matters is the 2 20-second sprints. So most of my rides on the Carol bike are probably 7-8 minutes long, because those 2 extra minutes don't hurt too much, and it's still super short. Yeah. It's the 2 20-second sprints where the magic really happen. And it's those 2 20-second sprints that create this very, very potent training stimulus.
Yeah. And I will tell you guys that 20 seconds will never have felt as long as these 20 seconds. You look up, you're like, your head down, spinning away. You pick your head up and you go, how am I still counting down from 8 here? Like, this isn't, the last 3 seconds feels like an hour. Like, it's hilarious. But let's back it up. Let's talk about the research, because I think that, right now people are sitting there. Don't turn off your phone or whatever yet. Just hear us out, because the research is irrefutable. And so let's talk. You have a stack of benefits that was measured. Now, were these in people who were untrained athletes, basically? So you took a bunch of untrained couch potatoes, or varying degrees of couch potatoes, and said, okay, we're going to do 8 weeks. You're going to do this bike, and we're going to talk about why. Anyway, we'll talk about the technology in a minute. You're going to do it 8 weeks. Was it 2 or 3 times a week, or is it
3 times a week?
3 times a week. You're going to spend 8 minutes on this bike. And of that 8 minutes, most of it's going to be pedaling really easy peasy. There'll be 2 20-seconds that we're going to ask you to go all out. And what happened at the end of 8 weeks? What did you see in the science?
Yeah. So this was, and actually we didn't do that research. This was independently done by Western University in Colorado. This study was funded by the American Council on Exercise, whose remit is to evaluate training methodologies, new technology, and assess what works and what doesn't. So they've commissioned independently a university to have a randomized controlled trial with 2 groups, fully peer reviewed, to look at what are the effects of these very, very short Rehit workouts compared to longer steady state exercise. So the control group did 2.5 hours, 5 times half an hour of jogging, pretty much zone 2 type workout.
Okay.
And the results were, to be honest, they were not surprising because it built on prior research, were very consistent with what had been found before. But nevertheless, the results were really impressive in the improvement in VO2 max that group saw, and that we see in the wider data of our users, and that we see in other studies, which was a 12% improvement in 8 weeks. And to illustrate a little bit how much that is. So VO2 max is a very, very fundamental health marker, physiological marker, probably more important than your weight. So if you think about losing 12% of your weight, that would be a lot, in 8 weeks. So it's a very profound change in a very short period of time. And also how you can think about it. So as we age beyond the age of 30, VO2 max typically or on average reduces by 10% each decade. So that means in only 8 weeks, with very little time invested into that exercise, you'll go back more than 10 years in terms of your cardiorespiratory fitness. And that is very noticeable. So it's not subtle. And it also doesn't stop there. So most studies are like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. Some studies are longer, up to 20 weeks. And then we see improvements of around 20%, and which again is reflected in our user data. And it goes further. Over the course of 6 months or a year, it's entirely plausible to see improvements of 30, 40, even more. So my VO2 max, when I started with this, with these Rehit workouts, went up by more than 50%. So I was in the mid 30s, which I'm slightly embarrassed to admit, but that was a time, 3 young children, busy job is hard. Yeah,
Life.
exactly. Life happened.
Yeah.
And I'm now I'm now around 53. So that's more than 50% improvement using these Rehit rides. And that's very noticeable. But you really do feel that in everything you do.
Yeah. I would think in your energy level, in your daily energy levels.
Absolutely.
And in a world where everybody's becoming obsessed with reversing biological age, if we can get our heads around the fact that your VO2 max is a central tenet of that biological age reversal. So if your VO2 max numbers now are comparable to that of a 30-year-old person, right? It's going to affect epigenetically how your genes express. So I think the downstream cascading effects of improving VO2 max are profound at a physiological level that people, you can take all the supplements you can want. And there's supplements for everything. You've got exercise mimetics, you've got fasting mimetics, and they're all great, but they're still mimetics. They're not going to do for your body what physical exercise is going to do. So I just want people to remember that, because you can take an exercise mimetic and get some of the benefits of exercise with an exercise mimetic, but it's not going to touch your VO2 max. And that is a law of nature. That's just the way nature works. So VO2 max improved dramatically, but there were other markers that improved as well, right? And I think that these are things that people also talk about a lot. And some of them are things you would think about, I'd have to change my diet, and you do. But let's talk about insulin resistance for a minute and glucose disposal, because yes, you can change your diet, but if you're going to change the way those glucose transporters act at skeletal muscle, there's really the best way to do that is going to be to deplete the glycogen in the muscle, to make room and to create a need. So maybe talk a little bit about that, because I think that was one of the metrics you looked at, or that was also looked at in the research.
Yes, exactly. So the headline is improvements to metabolic health and the risk of developing metabolic diseases like type 2 diabetes. And that was measured by looking at a basket of physiological measurements like your blood sugar levels, your HDL cholesterol, your triglycerides, your waist circumference, and another one. And in that 8-week period, the participants saw on average a 60%, 62% risk reduction,
Wow.
yeah, of developing metabolic diseases. And so that is very profound. That's the same as taking prescription medicine like metformin, and you get that from exercise. You get that without the side effects of taking a prescription drug, and you get all the additional benefits from exercise. So it's very profound for your metabolic health, and it is, of course, as you said, and this is the rapid depletion of the glycogen stored in your leg muscles, in your thighs. That is what triggers the signaling pathway that tells your body it has to get fitter and stronger. And it is, of course, as well what helps your body to become less insulin resistant, more insulin sensitive, to become more metabolically flexible. Because on the one hand, you basically force your body to mobilize lots of energy very, very quickly. You create space for sugar to be deposited, to be stored in your muscles again. That's which is basically your emergency energy reserve. Your body doesn't want to operate on low emergency reserve. So it will, as you said, it will get really good at fueling up again and moving that sugar from the bloodstream back into your muscles so that it's prepared for whatever emergency happens next.
Well, one of the funnest tracks of the Carol bike is the Tiger track, which is exactly what you're talking about, right? So from an ancestral perspective, the human body needs to be, because we are prey animals, even though you wouldn't believe it now, the way that we've done things, but then we got unfair advantages. But back in the day, before guns and things, we were prey animals and we needed to be prepared to run at the drop of a pin. And so there's a track on, because Carol will seek to entertain you while she's putting you through your paces. By the way, that's in 8 minutes for 2 20-second sprints. I just need to repeat that just so you guys understand that all of these big numbers we're talking about relates back to that tiny little workout we're discussing. And the Tiger track is you're walking through, you're walking through the tall grass and it's a beautiful day and everything's really great. But then there's a shadow. And so it flips you into this flee the tiger mode for 20 seconds. And it's the track that I play the most often. You would think I would get sick of it, but at the end of the day, it's the one that gets me pedaling the hardest.
Yeah.
If you just kind of allow yourself, and it taps into an embedded mechanism, survival mechanism in our brains without the terror, which is good because we don't need the terror. But that embedded, the human body was built to sprint and to be able to get out of trouble fast. And so this taps into that mechanism. And the fact that over 8 weeks, I just want to take it back here for the audience. We read stats about what percentage of North Americans, and frankly now even Europeans, like as bad habits and sedentary lifestyles have spread around the world, we read about how metabolic health is becoming one of the most elusive concepts to humanity. And this is a way to restore, in large part, that metabolic health in a fairly easy intervention. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't not to say that you shouldn't improve your diet, that you shouldn't prioritize sleep, manage your stress, hydrate, do all the things. But this is a needle mover. Like 8 weeks is a very short period of time to actually move the needle that dramatically.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our listeners. Let's say, I mean, look, in my house, for example, I don't match up to my husband. I'm small. I'm female. I don't have VO2 max has never been my strong suit. Meanwhile, he's like 6 feet tall, athlete, cyclist, ex-water polo player. His VO2 max is off the charts. And I have to I make him mop the floor after he's done on Carol. Now, that's not after the 10, necessarily the Rehit, but let's talk a little bit about a more trained athlete, how this technology can help them as well. And we haven't really gotten to the crux of what Carol's about, because the 20-second sprint is fine. Somebody saying, oh yeah, I got a bike downstairs, I can do a 20-second sprint, no problem. But we're going to go back to that, how our bodies adapt to everything we throw at it, and how Carol solves that problem.
Yeah. So one is the Carol bike is it's fully automated, computer controlled, and it uses AI to personalize the workouts really for any age and fitness level. And so you can have an athlete and really kind of big, tall, strong guys get a very, very efficient Rehit workout on the bike. And you can get a much more normal person, and in fact, a slightly older people. So my mother is 81, and she does these Rehit rides religiously every other day.
Love it.
And because we use AI to personalize the workouts, we and have a bike that has 255 resistance levels, and we can really go from very low to very, very high. We can create a workout that is suitable for any age and fitness level to start off with. And then as you get fitter and stronger, our algorithms will also adjust the workout to you. So it stays challenging, and you improve further as much as you can. Of course, we're not going to be all Olympians and Olympic athletes, but so that we don't prematurely reach a plateau, but really get as much out of it as we can. And the flip side is also true. If you had to take a break, or you injured yourself, this happened to me a few weeks ago, now a few months ago, that Carol will ease off and make it easier for you, because so that you have like an appropriately challenging workout that you can do, and that's really efficient, and that it keeps you at that personal sweet spot.
Yeah, I love that. And so basically what Ulrich, I'm just going to put it in a slightly different way for people who've never experienced this before. What happens is you basically have like a couple of minute warm up where you're instructed by the bike, you're taken through some breath work, and you're instructed to keep it, and there's metrics on your screen. And so it's showing you your output, and it wants to keep your output low. So you're only going to pedal so hard. And there's a countdown from 10 down to 0. And this is when your 20-second sprint starts. And what happens here is the algorithm of the machine determines that how much tension it needs to produce against you to get you working to your maximum. Correct. So this is where when Ulrich is talking about the resistance of the bike changes, there's no dials to spin. There's no adjustments for you to make. Your only job is to pedal as hard as you possibly can for 20 seconds. The bike is going to establish how much resistance is required to push you to that level where you've created that glycogen clearing effect. So you don't have to do anything, guys. All you have to do is put your head down and pedal like the wind.
Yeah.
And then after 20 seconds, the resistance goes away. you're guided through another breathwork session, another 2.5 minutes or so, another countdown by 10 seconds, and you're off to the races. And then it's your cool down.
Yeah, exactly. And so one very common question we obviously get asked is why do I need a special bike? And we would not have built and designed Carol if it wasn't necessary. So the research that Carol is based on and builds on was done on scientific research equipment that was that's operated by a second person. So it's first very expensive and operated by a second person. Because if you go to your maximum, there is not much else you can do in that moment. And for an effective and efficient Rehit workout, you would basically need to accelerate to a really high pedal pace while the resistance is low. And then you dial in your optimal resistance at the optimal time in a fraction of a second. And that's just very difficult, if not, I would argue, impossible.
I would say it's impossible to do.
Yeah, exactly. And you're welcome to try it. Don't hurt yourself. And I'm actually serious, don't hurt yourself, because most bikes have like a fixed, the flywheel drives the pedals. And so if you lost the rhythm or so, you'd strain your ankle. So there would be actually a risk of injury. And all of those risks are completely taken care of with Carol. We've put in many mechanisms and features that make it both as simple as possible. So machine coaches you through, and you literally, all you have to do is give your best when the machine tells you to, when Carol tells you to, and to make it as safe as possible. So we keep an eye on your heart rate. We have this freewheel clutch that you can stop anytime without being having to maintain that high pedal cadence if you don't want to, and so on. So that's and Carol Bike is really optimized for those Rehit workouts.
Yeah. Well, and then there's so now is there anything else we want to say about Rehit workouts? Because I want to dive into some of the other ways to use Carol, because I don't want people to walk away from this thinking it's a one-trick monkey. So first of all, before we leave Rehit completely, is there anything else we've missed on the Rehit?
I think we've covered a lot. And it's quite good to also talk a little bit about what else you can do. And you're entirely right. Most people, because that is what it has been optimized for, and what really sets it apart from all the other bikes out there, that's very, very special about Carol Bike. But it's not the only thing. There's in our app, so it comes with a screen, it has our software on it. There's at this point 24, soon it'll be 27 different types of workouts.
Yeah.
And the criteria for us to include something in our app is it needs to be scientifically validated. There needs to be good science behind it. It needs to be effective, and ideally it needs to be short. Yeah. Zone two is the exception. Yeah. It's scientifically validated. It is effective. It's not short. But it has several options to do zone-based workouts. And as I said, probably in 6 to 8 weeks, we'll be releasing a feature that uses heart rate variability and like higher order complexity analysis of heart rate variability to help you find that optimal spot. And so if you have enough time and you want to do everything, then I would argue our bike is probably the best bike on the market to do that.
To do zone 2 training.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because you'll know you're actually in zone 2.
Absolutely. So we'll take you to that optimal spot to do zone 2, and it takes the guesswork out. But but that's if you have the time. And so,
Yeah.
yes. And then there's a whole lot of other things in there
Mm-hmm.
that you can do to either help you assess your fitness levels, to measure your fitness levels, or to achieve specific goals.
Yeah. Let's talk
So
about the fat burner workout.
yes,
Oh my God. So you would never believe that an
Mhm.
8-second sprint repeated
Yeah,
would leave you feeling like a dish rag on the floor, but it does. I can
yes,
attest to it. It's
yes,
they call it the fat burner workout, right?
Mhm.
And it's how many is it 30 it's
yes,
30 repeats with
yes,
8-second sprint, 12-second break, and the 12-second break you're just pedaling with no resistance. And the first few you're like, "Oh my God, this is amazing. I could do this." And then by the time you're getting up around 10, you're
yeah,
thinking, "Wait, there's 20 more to go." And I find
absolutely.
once I've come over 20, I'm like, "Okay, well, I can hang on for another 10. I'm
Yeah.
going to be good."
So yes, so this is a form of HIIT, yeah, of high intensity interval training with shorter sprints. Also
Mhm.
done at so it's all connected, and the resistance is still personalized, and it will still
Yeah.
get harder as you get fitter. So it's all automated, but those are done at slightly lower resistance. You do a lot more of them. You will sweat, yeah,
Oh,
sweat a lot and burn a phenomenal amount of calories. And so now I'm never getting tired of saying for weight loss, nutrition must be your number one
100%.
target. Yeah, that's just what it is. But kind of as a supporting tool to increase your calorie burn, this is a workout that burns a phenomenal amount of calories on the bike and a phenomenal amount of calories off the
After.
bike.
Yeah.
Yes, so it has
Yeah, it's the
really, really
afterburn effect.
exactly profound level. Like 2/3 of the calorie burn happens actually after you get off the bike, because for another 2 hours, your metabolism is very elevated and kind of just gradually comes, recovers. And so it's a phenomenal amount of calorie burn.
Yeah.
And so, yes, if weight loss is an important objective, now I would still suggest to get the VO2 max benefit and the efficiency of the Rehit rides, you do say 2 a week, maybe 2 to 3 a week, but you add in maybe 1 or 2 of those fat burn rides to just hit it from another angle.
Yeah. And to be clear, the fat burn rides, if 30 reps sounds like a long time, we're talking what, 12, 15 minutes on the bike? It's
15 minutes
again,
on the bike.
it's, I
Yes,
mean, from an efficiency perspective,
absolutely.
what Carol brings to the table is the ability to be incredibly efficient with your time. If you want to spend 2 hours on the bike, it's that, like, there's these crazy climbing workouts that Mitch does on Carol. That's when we need to mop the floor. There's all these different options. I think for a while, hadn't you also partnered with a cycling class company? Do you still have that option, or is
So
that less so?
I wouldn't call it so much as partnered, but
But,
so
or given access? Yeah.
exactly that, because we the Carol bike is not a lockdown. So it's of course all remotely managed, and you get the latest updates.
Oh
That's
yeah.
all fine, but you can use the Carol bike with a wide range of third-party apps as well. And so for example, Peloton Digital works wonderfully on the bike as well. So if you're into hot celebrity instructors and great soundtracks, and
Hmm.
no, I mean Peloton, what they do, they
They do
also
well.
do well. Exactly. I don't want to. We don't talk them down at all, and we wish them well. You can use that on the Carol bike and follow those workouts too. Or if you're into racing or like scenic rides and things like that, You can use app like Swift. This is like the cycling athletes amongst your listeners will know what it is. So if you have a carbon road bike and Lycra cycling pants, then you probably know what Swift is. And it's fully compatible with that too. And a number of other like cycling apps,
Okay.
Ruvi. There's a number of them, Kinomap, and they're all compatible with the Carol bike. So it's a very versatile, possibly one of the most versatile bikes out there, because we've left it open. We didn't lock it down that you can
Yeah.
only use our app. No, you can use all those other apps, and the scientifically validated, super efficient workouts, they're in our app. And then there's a whole wide range of further options that you can
Yeah.
also access via other apps.
Yeah, I love it. I've been meaning to tell you that I went to see my chiropractor a while ago, and he told me that his 16-year-old son who plays competitive hockey is religious on the Carol bike.
Oh,
He
wonderful.
has his buddies over, and they have a leaderboard. And
Nice. Yeah.
and one guy, he said, totally hacked it because he figured out that he punches the first pedal really, really hard. He's able to crank up that first value
Yeah.
really high. But it becomes a game, right? And
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
and I think that what's important, and people are like, wow, it's an investment. And it's like, it is an investment, but it's an investment that literally everyone in your family can get benefit from.
Yeah,
It's not a
absolutely.
one trick. It just doesn't only apply to one thing. And the fact that you've allowed this tapping into other apps means that what Carol's unique value remains, but it can also do the thing that all the other bikes do. So I just, like I said to you, I lifted weights yesterday. I went and lifted in the morning, and I took the day to recover. And then I was on my Carol bike in the evening, late afternoon. I just, in between calls, I thought, okay, I need to move. I don't want to go outside. I hopped on my bike. I did my 10-minute rehit and was back upstairs to do my call right
Yeah.
on time. And I
Yeah.
wasn't even that sweaty. It was great.
Yes, yes, yes. We didn't mention that yet
You
because
don't even get to get into gym clothes.
people, then nobody would believe it anyway. But it is true. We had this. It is super efficient, very effective way, the most efficient way to improve your VO2 max. But most people don't even sweat. So yes, and that's how we have to fight this kind of, oh, it's too good to be true. But once you try it, and we actually don't promise this, like 8 out of 10 don't sweat. Some people just,
Some people just sweat.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. They have to look at a bike and start sweating. That does exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
But most people don't. And that's why, yeah, our bike sign offices, then some, law firms, creative agencies where people do it in their coffee break or in their lunch break.
Yeah. What a way to wake up your brain. Instead of a hit of caffeine, hop on the bike for 10 minutes
Absolutely.
or 5, frankly. It'll wake you up. And there's lots of good science that says that improving blood flow and getting that heart going is going to be amazing for your brain and help you to focus and be more productive on the
Yeah.
other side. Because guess what? You didn't get exhausted,
Yeah.
right? You just gave the system kind of like the paddles
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
ready to go.
Exactly. So yes, you push really hard during those 20-second sprints, but the overall level of exertion is actually really low. So you do just enough to activate and to saturate this signaling response pathway, telling your body it has to get fitter and stronger, but also not more. And that means it's actually a very low level of exertion that you recover very quickly from. And that means you just put less stress on your body,
Yeah.
and give it more time to build and get fitter rather than hammering away and stressing it unnecessarily.
Yeah. And I think that that's another really important point in a world where people might be overstressed, their cortisol levels may be too high. and they can't necessarily take very long duration, stressful workouts. This gives you the ability in most cases. I mean, obviously, if you're going through something intense, you want to check with your doctor. But if you're able to access this enables you to tap into all those benefits of exercise, the physiological and the psychological benefits of exercise, without overtaxing the system. You're not going to get an overuse injury from doing a Rehit workout, which,
Yeah.
it saves, it's what we said before. It really gives you then bigger bandwidth and a bigger bucket of time to get all the other components of fitness into your world, or at least some of them. Right? We're just like we can only do what we can do. But if your baseline is these 3 Rehit workouts a week, if you're able to push one longer workout in there, then all the better. But it gives you time to get outside if getting outside is your priority, or whatever else it is. So think of Carol as the gift of time and the gift of fitness all at the same time.
Yeah, exactly that.
All the things. Okay, so let's finish off with a couple of quick fire questions, and then we'll let people get on with their day and either go shop for a bike or hop on their bike if they happen to have one and just needed a little refresher on how fabulous this piece of equipment is. So what are 3 things you would like people to know about Rehit workouts specifically?
Yeah. So it's an incredibly short and the most efficient way to improve your VO2 max. Workouts can be done in 5 minutes, and you only have to work hard for 2 20-second sprints for the most potent cardiorespiratory training stimulus.
Great. Is there anybody who should not use Carol Bike that you can think of?
So there's no lower age restriction. There's no higher age restriction. You need to be tall enough to fit on the bike. If you have pre-existing medical conditions, and this is as with every gym or with every new sport you take up, we must say that, and it's also good common sense. If you have pre-existing medical conditions, check with your physician, check with your medical provider, whether you're good to take up high-intensity interval training before you start. But other than that, no, it's a very safe and very well-tolerated form of exercise. And there's most people should be able to do this.
Amazing. And what are 3 metabolic benefits of doing Rehit, whether it's a 10-minute or 5-minute Rehit workout 3 times a week?
Yeah. So your risk of developing things like type 2 diabetes reduces dramatically by over 60% in a very short time frame, in less than in 8 weeks, that has been shown. Your metabolic flexibility improves, and your insulin sensitivity improves to give you that metabolic health benefit that's so critical for like many of us.
Yeah. Longevity, health span, vitality, all the things. I think we're good. Ulrich, thank you so much for your time today. This has been great. Great conversation. And you know what, guys, going back to the beginning of the podcast, we did a number on Zone 2 training. We were not saying it's terrible, but we were saying that there's some qualifiers about it. And on its own, it's not going to do everything for you that maybe, there's a message out there that maybe is a little overstated on that. So, Ulrich, thank you. And as always, a pleasure. Guys, if you want to get your hands on a Carol bike, the URL is, I'm going to let Ulrich say it just in case it's not what I remember it to be.
So it's carolbike.com.
Okay.
That's our website. You can, there's a lot of information on there. There's links to all the research, the science that backs up our claims. Mm-hmm. And if you want to talk to somebody to see whether it's right for you, you can always call us. We have fitness advisors, people with masters in exercise physiology, who can give you really competent advice whether it's right for you. And if you want to try it, we're in leading they're not in your regular gym, but they're like
Oh,
leading
yeah.
biohacking facilities, performance studios. And the other thing, we offer a very, very generous risk-free trial. So that's a way to try Carol Bike, see whether it's right for you, whether you see the benefits, whether you can stick to it, and you have a whole 100 days. If it's not for you, we just collect it again. You get a full refund.
Wow.
And so, because in many cases, coming back to this too good to be true, once you've done it, yeah, you absolutely understand how this can be so efficient and so effective. And that's one thing we want to enable people to do with our risk-free trial.
Yeah, it's massive. And guys, you can also save some money. You can use code NAT100 and that'll help out a little bit on that investment, but it's a worthy investment. And the other thing I do want to mention, guys, is the customer service is next level. So there is nothing that your customer service people can't fix almost remotely. And
Yeah.
that's a big thing, right? Because you're like, okay, well, I'm going to bring this bike in. What if something goes wrong? And my experience, I think it's Mario is the guy that I talk to all the time. I
Yeah.
imagine him sitting in his shop, like round the clock, 7 days a week. And that man never stops, but he's always been able to
Yeah.
and not that I've had that many
Yeah.
problems, but anytime there's been a little glitch, half the time it's my fault.
Yeah.
He's able to figure it out and he's always really nice about it. Oh,
Yes.
Natalie, maybe you just need to plug it in better.
And so this is something that we actually really, that's of great importance to us. We really care for our users, for our customers, and we want them to have the best possible experience. So yes, no, I'm very pleased to hear that. Thank you so much. I'll pass that on. But it is in line with our ethos. We want our users to have a really great experience, and help them get this super efficient cardio workout in.
Love it. Ulrich, thank you so much again. It's been a pleasure. So once again, carolbike.com, nat100, and check it out. It's pretty cool. It'll change your life.